All right. My action back going again. Okay. Welcome, everybody. We are here for Lay of the Land Weekly Impact. Today is the 24th of June, 2024. Kris, you are far away and in a booth somewhere.
I am in Salt Lake City at a WeWork gym doing some work remotely. You know how that life goes.
I do. I know all too well. I have my black WeWork card and have used it in, I don't know, a couple dozen different places. But today we have a couple things to talk about, Kris. We have to talk about Umberto Fedeli, a great two-part episode. I want to ask you about EO, and I've got I got a little food service story to tell you. So let's get right into Umberto. Umberto was this was episode number 171, and he was also on episode 135. And there was so much content that our good friend Jeffrey spread it over two episodes.
Yeah, I think we've had two other two-parters, but they were really kind of the journey and their stories, right? So the early on episode, later on episode, and kind of catching up to them and where they're at in their journey. Yeah. This is different, right? This, I think, is just, there was so much to unpack, so much story to be told that Jeffrey wanted to make sure that we got as much of it out there as possible.
You know, I have a lot of compassion for that. I had once had a chance to interview Gloria Steinem for a show that I did, and every word out of her mouth was pure gold. There was nothing to edit it. So we just got to run the whole thing, man. I don't know. So Umberto, one of the things that really struck me, Kris, is that he really has a business operating system. He has a set of things he does that looks just like what we do for smaller companies, but he's a pretty big company. He's been very successful. So he's climbed that ladder of the stages of a business growth, and he's at the pinnacle, and he's got his own way of doing things, and it works.
Yeah, I think as much as we want to talk about the 5 stages of business building, right? Like you start off in survival, then you go to sustainable, then scale, success, and stewardship. The entrepreneur goes with them, right? Like it's your business that you almost want at times. And I think he's really in that stewardship, that 5th portion. And in that 5th portion, as you get to think more holistically of the learnings that you've had, the people you've impacted, things you would pass on to others. And he's really kind of that stewardship. And it shows in all of his endeavors and his wisdom that he's really actively working to share.
Well, you know, and Kris, I actually, you know, when I have one of my clients are stepping up, whenever I'm leveling them up, I always talk about it. This is a choice. Do you want to be the leader that you have to become for this next stage? And here's what it looks like. We know what it looks like, but you're gonna have to go learn things. You're gonna have to go change the way you behave. You're gonna have to. There's gonna be new challenges ahead of you, but you don't have to do it. You can. I mean, certainly, you know, you can exit. We've seen that with a good friend, Kevin Van Kajeling. He left Key Factor. We talked about it last week when we talked about the new CEO taking over there and, you know, being an entrepreneur of the year, whatever. But that business is going to become a stewardship kind of company. But, you know, Kevin's like, hey, man, I'm good.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I actually was at the airport in Cleveland, headed to Salt Lake, and he was in the United Lounge. So we got to hug it out, say hi. And for those who don't know, Kevin's at it again. Company's called Ready Set Surgical.
Yes.
We definitely got to get Kevin on the podcast because he's got stories for days in his own right.
Because he's a guy that he loves that early stage. I mean, that's really who he is. He's not going to be the guy that takes it to 500 people. Anyway, so let's Umberto Fedeli. So the things I loved about this, I loved, you know, first of all, his thing about you have to have the right people and his definition for that. You got to have these commitments. What were they? Lifelong learning, being proactive, being cooperative, and you have to have the 3 I's: integrity, intelligence, intensity. That's a great way of breaking it down. It's not the core values. It's a level up from that. It's like this is the way we think and talk about it.
Yeah, but they're still focus filters, right? So you could call them pillars. I mean, different operating systems, but it's just another focus filter that you've added to the equation beyond core values that you start, right? You have to begin in a very simplistic form so you can grow and scale. And he's just adding some more wisdom. And hey, these are filters that we've used, and I'm sure there's lots of applicability for other folks that are coming through the different stages of business.
He has a 5 C's, you know, but I think that's the thing. I mean, exactly as we teach people, you know, as you get to that level, you're going to have your own operating system, and you're going to have to apply your own thoughts and feelings on how to do all these things. You start with this published operating system, there's some best practices. You might as well start here because you don't have anything, because you don't want to be accidental. You want to be intentional. But when you get to the top, you have to have your own journey and be it, but still be intentional about it, but know enough to break the rules the right way.
Yeah, and one of my favorite parts, and you and I've witnessed and talked to a lot of entrepreneurs building, but one of my favorite parts about his story is the struggle that comes with it.
Right.
the humility, the humanity, that like it wasn't just a straight line, right? Like it doesn't go that way. We grow in spurts, we get challenged, we figure it out, we grow again, we risk. I'm like, that's the journey for
I
entrepreneurs.
loved his humility around, we've made some mistakes, and some of those mistakes were like we thought we knew what we were doing and we didn't, right? Which is the most important
Well, yeah,
humility to have, right? To
because and because you take a small set of he had a couple, I think it was two, maybe three investments that they made, and maybe it's more on the venture side of the house,
right.
right? And they were correct. And so then you think, well, I know how to do this, and maybe you're just as lucky as you were good. And so that's the pattern recognition, right? And I think there's some conversations around that, and
Yeah. Well,
that's
because
not
100%. Well, that's his thing with the rational targeting. Being a big fan of the Charlie Munger, who recently passed away, and just understanding that we have to look for that pattern recognition to look for what we're doing well, and really lean into that, acknowledge that, and acknowledge what we don't do well, which is the other side of that, and that's a place where people get wrong sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I do want to call out the right people conversation with Jeffrey around like, we all have biases, right? And we like to hire people that look like us, that we're familiar with, that we can recognize. And he was actually advocating for really kind of, multiple sets of interviews, multiple perspectives.
Yes.
How do you get rid of bias? It's through diversity, right? And so he's called out that, through that diversity, I think you're going to make better hires. And, big fan of that, because I know
Love it.
I have biases, and I'd like the other opinions and people who think differently than I think, to see things that I can't see at times. And so I was a big fan of that. I'll also love, there's, fan of the impact moments, Jim. We both coach to it.
We loved impact moments, to recognize the impact moments. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if our definition is exactly the same as his, but I do love the thought of it, right? And recognition that don't walk by that moment, that there's probably something there, how it lands, how you learn from it, and, absorb it, right? So impact moments came out as well.
And the focus on having impact. I mean, he's talking about having impact on your on your community, on the business, on your own learning. I mean, I think it's he obviously, it's bigger than just building business. You want to make more money. He's a capitalist. There's no question about that. But he knows he also wants to build a community of people that are happy, and that's the other thing. He leaned into his conversation about happiness.
Yeah, well, and I think when you start to tie it all out, right, you go back to, again, Maslow's hierarchy of need, which we're
Yeah.
fans of, and you think about as you go up into that self-actualization, you start to think beyond yourself, right? You start to think into your community, you start to think about, legacy, but not as a building has your name on it, but legacy from the ripple effect that you can create, right?
Yeah.
The generations of those that can have more because, you gave. And I do want to point out too, I'm a big fan of like, and my family was like this, was like, you give when you don't have enough, right? And that the lessons of you don't give because you have enough now. You start that
Right.
habit, right? And we've definitely, tried to do that with our kids, almost a flaw, I think. But from the standpoint of we made them clean out their closets once a quarter, right?
Yeah.
And donate things and start that whole, like, it's not just to be getting rid of something, it's understand that what you're doing is in service to others that need things,
Yeah.
probably have some things more than you need. So
Acknowledge your the what you've got going for it. I love that. So what work as earned success, that like that notion of work 9.0 that I know that Mark Abbott talks about, with its high having, work with a capital W, work with purpose, work with in service, all covered in there. And it was just such a dense thing, Kris. I mean, that's when I could not listen to it at higher speed. I just like, I tried, but then I keep going back. Wait, what did he say? What did he say?
yeah.
It's all just pure gold the whole time.
Yeah, my last one, just because a little homage to Dan Sullivan, and really understanding your unique ability, and then carry that into the EOS framework as well. But Dan's just great, and that whole rational targeting, right? Understanding that you're doing the right work and bringing lenses to the work, and obviously, of course, purpose falls into place when we start to do that as well. But that's when I think people really thrive, right? And that doesn't mean you get to start there. Sometimes you have to know what you don't want to do along the way, what you're not good at, and those are just lessons learned. But that's what you're in pursuit of, is finding that unique ability, finding in that through rational targeting that you're doing the right work.
And making progress towards that is a source of happiness in and of itself. and there's good research behind that. All right, so don't miss those couple of interviews. Really gold stuff for anyone that wants to have a purposeful approach to their business. Number two, Kris, I wanted to talk about EO. EO is beginning their new year with the end of June, and I know we always talk about the value of peer impact, how important it is for people to have peers, and EO is a great peer organization. And I know you were a member for a very, very long time, and and the local chapter here in Cleveland, actually one of the best chapters in the country. You've done a great job. Everyone's done a great job building it. And we've had a whole bunch of them on the show. Jim Bishak and from 152, Aaron Singh from 147, Mark Agostinho 76, David Edelman for number 32, Laura Steinberg from number 25, Cal from Pandata at number 60. I mean, there's and Aaron Grossman. These are all, these people have really gone far, and they'll all, I think, to a person would tell you, EO helped me get there.
And I can think of 2 or 3 more that we didn't catch on that long list. So no offense, anyone, if we didn't grab
there's of course episode 98.
Yeah, but I think the reason we're fans of it is because this is hard, and we're not going. Entrepreneurs are not. Maybe run off to take a couple classes, sort out over weekend leadership, but think about these as your folks that you can go to a very safe place, that are in the same place that you are. They're sharing experiences with you. Maybe they've been through it before. Maybe they're going through it now, and it's a different board of advisors than if you had a board, right? Like, it's different because they also don't have stake in the game. Like, if you go home to your spouse or people, your investors, they have a perspective, and it's not the same. So it's really that peer group, and especially I'll just call it EO for it, because they catch the early stage entrepreneurs, right? They have the accelerator program, kind of like 250 to $1 million, and then $1 million on is kind of when you're officially in EO, and it just makes a difference. It really does.
Yeah, and there's more places to go beyond that, but certainly having that, getting it together, and I mean they've got a great education. I know I went to something called Cliteracy last week, but it's all ties back to being really healthy in yourself. What's a healthy way to do entrepreneurship? What's a healthy way to be building a business, and being really intentional about it, knowing you're not alone. That's really the great part of that. So, and Kris, you had an amazing experience. Do you still get together with your forum still?
Yeah, so four mates are almost for life, right? Like, if you do it, I was in for 13 years, and still obviously love seeing my forum. There's an alumni scenario here that doesn't get really talked about. Like, some of those names you said, we're in for a long time, like myself, and I like to think about them as really just being alumni. So the alumni, I think last time I knew in Cleveland was like 360 some people had come through successfully the program. They stopped because their business was in a different place. They were in a different place.
Yeah, they transition out. Yeah.
Transition out. That doesn't mean you're done supporting the community of entrepreneurs, right? Like, there's still a community here to be supported. And I think there's the mentorship program for EO. I ran that program, and I reached out to the alumni community to try to get support for the existing folks that were actually in the program.
Yeah, and it's very, very fulfilling. I participated in the mentorship program a couple times, and I'll be in this year as well. And yeah, so if you're looking for some peers, EO is a great place to go. Well, great. Well, Kris, the last thing I want to talk about a little bit of the food scene. When people talk about the hidden gems in Cleveland, the food scene often comes up. And I was at the local farmers market here in Shaker Heights this last weekend. Ran into to Bridget from Luna, who's also in EO, by the way, and also Todd Fetterman, who was there. And so it's a community place. It's really people dedicated to healthy eating. But here's the thing, Bridget, she runs Luna. But I'm connected to her first because she took over from my sister at Doug Katz's restaurant Fire, which was in Shaker Heights, Shaker Square there. He was on show number 94, an entrepreneur of long standing here in Cleveland, building food businesses, doing a great job right now, by the way. And Doug, is one of those people that's been around building stuff for a while. He's trying to find new ways of doing things. He was part of a wave of people that came up with himself and Michael Simon and my sister Heather, who runs Lucky's, and they were all friends. And Michael Simon and Heather were both in Tremont when it was not safe to be in Tremont after dark, and building the restaurants there, and both had great success. My sister with diners, drive-ins, and dives, and that building that business. And Michael Simon obviously became the Iron Chef. I mean, he was, he's done amazing things. And he moved into a place on East 4th that be, his flagship restaurant that was downtown in Tremont moved to East Fourth. He got convinced to move to East Fourth as part of work that Nick Kotsis, who's recently got the 8/80 award at Crane's Cleveland, because he built up. He was the owner of the Pickwick and Frolic and had a vision for turning East Fourth into something that was like his native Brooklyn, right, which he did. I mean, East Fourth, fabulous scene, right? I mean, who doesn't like to go down somewhere anywhere in East Fourth? And the new restaurant where Lola was on East Fourth is now called Cordelia. Andrew Watts started that one, and Vinny Semino, who's the chef there, just got recognized by the James Beard Foundation as one, which is like the Oscars for restaurants. So, there is this vibrant community of entrepreneurs in Cleveland building very interesting restaurants, and it's really based in that very pure notion of, restaurants are the center of things. When you talk to any of them about their food, it isn't just about, hey, I'm trying to slap out as many things as possible. They're like, I'm trying to create this meeting place, this community place, and gosh, I know whenever I can, I support those people. When we have to go somewhere or we have to order lunch, I get a lot of lunches from Luna, because I want to support them, because they believe in not just the food, but also the community aspect of it and the building of a business and creating opportunities for other people to succeed. So that's my fairy tale about food service, but it's real thing. It's a real thing.
And I'll call out, you and I both went to the Cleveland Magazine Silver Spoon Arthritis Foundation event in May.
Yep.
I think it was 50 plus local chefs were there being highlighted.
Crazy. Lost count. Yeah.
You could just walk place to place, and obviously they had pairings with different drinks and wine, and it's a really good representation. If anyone ever has the opportunity to go to that, I think my wife and I bought 4 different packages. We were talking about last night. Yeah, those.
Yeah,
we just got a bunch of them to go through, just because we were excited about the food and want to support, those folks that are continuing to build great in Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, they're all building great, and some of them I'm sure will be joining the show as well. All right, Kris, that's what I got for this week. Anything I missed?
No, man, I think it's a lot, but I appreciate the weekly impact.
All right, folks. Thanks. This has been Kris and Jim from Lay of the Land Weekly Impact. We'll see you again next week. Bye now.
Bye-bye.